Hi, I'm back. This is Dr. Michael Batu, and today we're going to talk about national output and value added. So the way production happens in the economy is that it happens in stages. So before we have final goods, we have what we call intermediate goods. So final goods are goods that are not used anymore for further production. In contrast, intermediate goods are goods that are used for further production. This distinction is important if we are to compute national output using value added. So let me write some concepts first in order for you to understand what I'm saying. All right, so these are the definitions of intermediate and final goods and value added. So when we say intermediate goods, these are outputs used as inputs by other producers in further stage of production. Final goods, on the other hand, are goods not used as inputs for further production, but instead they are meant to be sold. Now, how do we compute value added in the economy? So value added is computed but using the following approach. What we do is that we compute the value of the firm's output minus the value of the inputs purchased from other firms. So that is for one firm, all right? So what we're doing here is that we're computing value added for one firm. Now, in order to compute the value added for the whole economy is that you just have to compute the value added for each firm and add them up. That's how it's done. But for this case, what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at an example of one firm. All right, so here I have an example of a firm where we have information on the revenue and the inputs that are used and the value of the inputs used by this firm. And what we're going to do is we're going to compute for the value added for this firm. So let's read the problem first and let's analyze the given. So Batu's Bakery generates a yearly revenue of $6,000. Throughout the year, Batu spends $1,500 on flour, $1,000 on fruit, $500 on sugar and spices, $1,500 in butter, and employs an assistant whom Batu pays $1,000. So calculate the value of annual output using the value added method. So remember the definition earlier of value added. It's the difference between the value of goods and services produced by that firm, okay, which in this case is yearly revenue, minus the value of intermediate goods. So let's do that. So let's start with the yearly revenue. Here we have 6,000. So what we're going to do is the following. We're going to subtract from 6,000. So we have here 6,000. We're going to subtract, number one, the expenditure on flour, right here. So we're going to subtract 1,500. Remember, this 1,500 is an intermediate input, flour. Next, we're going to subtract the value of another intermediate input, fruit. Okay. Next, we're going to subtract another intermediate good, or the value of an intermediate good, which in this case is, so we have here 1,000 for fruit. Here you have 500 for sugar and spices. And since this is a bakery, Batu uses butter, so we have to subtract the value of the intermediate good, butter, 1,500. Then here you have butter. All right. So what's left? So what's left is 1,500, because you have here 1,500, 4,500. Yeah, so 15, that's right. So you have here left 1,500. So this, my friends, is the value added. Now the question is this: why didn't we include the cost of the assistant? And the reason is the following. Of all the intermediate goods, this one is actually labor. This is not an intermediate good. So in other words, the firm, which is in this case Batu's Bakery, purchased the hours of the worker, which is not considered as an intermediate input. In contrast, these goods, flour, fruit, sugar, and spice, and butter, these are goods that were produced by another firm. And these are the goods that, the value of these intermediate goods that we have to take into account when computing value added. So in other words, we will not include, for this particular example, we will not include the cost of labor, which is $1,000. So to summarize, the value added for Batu's Bakery is worth $1,500. And that concludes our video on computing value added. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time.